والسلام على خير الأنام وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. إننا نوينا التعلم والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة وعلى. Praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Praise is worthy of a beneficent bestower of bounties and mercies. And we ask our Lord Most High to send copious and unlimited and eternal blessings and salutations upon our beloved Prophet Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And we acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, and we pay our respects to their owners, to their elders, past and present. So if we continue, I think it's 113 in the book with the gentleman on the front. So we'll do the Arabic first as we normally do. It says وَالنَّوْعَ الثَّانِي, but I think it's not thani, I think it's thalith. I think there's a mistake there. He says وَالثَّانِي, so and that's the thalith. I don't know what that is, it's made a mistake. Then this last one he says وَالرَّابِعَ. So I don't know what so it's thalith, there's two, thalith, the second one has got two parts to it. The first one is the one that we just read, and the second part of the sabr ala al-makarih, to persevere when things one dislikes happen to an individual. He says there's two parts, the one that we just read, and this part, min al-makarih ma yakunu min qibali al-khalqi. So the first one, as we said today, was the ones that come from Allah Azza wa Jal, sickness and earthquakes and hurricanes and death of people that we like and whatever, those types of things. And the second one is that we'll talk about in a second, من الأذى في النفس أو العرض أو المال ويحصل كمال الصبر على ذلك بكف النفس على بغض المؤذي إن كان مسلما وعن حب الشر له وكف اللسان عن الدعاء عليه وترك المؤاخذات له رأسا إما حملا واحتمالا أو عفوا وصفحا اكتفاء بنصرة الله سبحانه وتعالى في الأول والرغبة في ثوابه في الثاني. So he says on 113, everyone's got a copy, I imagine, or can see a copy. He says the second of the unpleasant things comprises those which are caused by other, so in this one it's men, whether by way of offences to oneself and one's honour, or some act of withholding. Complete fortitude in this regard means preventing oneself from hating the offender if he is a Muslim, or wishing him to come to harm. Preventing one's tongue from praying to God against him and not reproaching him at all, which thing should be accomplished either by forbearance and fortitude through one's reliance on God's assistance or by reconciliations in the wish for his reward. We should continue there. ويبعث على هذا الصبر العلم بما ورد في فضل كظم الغيظ واحتمال الأذى والعفو عن الناس. وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى فمن عفا وأصلح فأجره على الله إنه لا يحب الظالمين، إلى قوله سبحانه وتعالى ولمن صبر وغفر ولمن صبر وغفر إن ذلك لمن عزم الأمور. And then he continues on and says, this kind of patience is helped by the knowledge of that which has been handed down regarding the merit which is in suppressing one's anger, enduring injuries and forgiving others. God the Exalted has said, the wage of the one who is forgiving and reconciling falls on God. He does not love the unjust. And whoso defends himself after he has suffered wrong, for such there is no way of blame against them. The way of blame is only against those who oppress men and transgress in the earth or on the earth without right. For such there is a painful torment. But those who endure patiently and forgive, indeed that is the great thing. Alright, so this is the second part of it, when one's perseverance or fortitude or hanging in there or resolution, one being resolute to a particular thing, is tied to another creation, and in particular human beings. Animals do that as well. Sharks bite us and donkeys might kick us. Maybe not we, maybe a dog might bite us or something like that. maybe a spider in Australia or an ant or something like that. But that we can even, it's easier for us to attribute that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because, so to speak, that those creatures and those creations don't have the intellect like we understand. But it's more difficult for us to reconcile the pains that are caused to us or by other human beings. And if we really wanted to look at it, going a step further to what Imam Haddad has said, more specifically those that we love or that we're close to. Because we least expect those people that we love and those people that we're close to transgress in terms of our rights upon them or our rights together. Those that we love, whether it's our mothers or our fathers, whether it's our brothers and sisters, whether it's our friends and our husbands and our wives or our children or whatever the case might be. So those that are close to us, their, so to speak, transgressions against us cause us the most amount of grief and the most amount of pain because of our own expectations toward those individuals and towards the relationship that we've had, and in particular the goodwill we may have contributed to that relationship. By goodwill I mean us fulfilling their rights, us looking after them should that have been the case, us and our even giving them when we were in need, us speaking and supporting them and helping them in whatever circumstance and situation they needed that. So that's the goodwill that we believe we have with those people in our relationships. And so when that is threatened, when that is tainted, when that is affected, or when that relationship is severed and that goodwill we believe is stopped, then we feel that hurt, we feel that pain, we feel that sense of loss because of what we believe we've contributed to that relationship. And so the way to reconcile that within ourselves is, what was our intention? وَمَا جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the recompense for one's excellent deeds is what? Excellence from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what that means is that if we do and when we do these good deeds, we should be expecting the reward of the good deeds from where? And from who? Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ultimately and realistically, that we really shouldn't be getting offended, upset, tainted by the deeds of another towards us, irrespective of how close the interpersonal relationship is between us and them. Really. I mean, it's easy to say, but of course we get affected because the emotions, because of the love we have for that person, because of the endearment that we have for that individual, because of the attachment that we have for that individual due to time we've spent together, or deeds that we've done together, or money that's been exchanged, or whatever the case might be, things that are dear to our heart. Once we've shared those things that are dear to our heart with others, then that person becomes dear to our heart because of the things that we've shared with that person. It may be just an emotional bond because of some relationship we have, them assisting us in whatever way it might be, or sharing with us the emotional strains that we've had in our lives, as the case might be, whatever that situation is. So in reality, if we're doing that for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the effect of that person's, let's just use the word treachery, even though it may not be treachery, it might just be they weren't fully paying attention, they were having a bad day, they were upset about something else, whatever the case might be. If we truly did that for Allah, whatever deed that was that we did, whatever action it was that we did, whatever advice that we gave, whatever it might be, then the effect of that is minimized because we're not expecting a reward. لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says we don't want a reward from you, or even a thanks. That's the true sign for us as to whether our deeds have been accepted by Allah Azza wa Jalla or not. Whether we're expecting a thanks from somebody, or whether we're accepting a reward, a recompense, even if it's to be treated the same way that we treated others. I know that all of us, we get into that habit. And that's, why do we get into that habit? Because we're doing good for the sake of doing good, not doing good for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla, which is a big difference. When someone does good because of an expectation from anything except Allah Azza wa Jalla, then unfortunately that reward, sorry to say, is not accepted by Allah. It's rejected by Allah. I am the most free of need of all partners, of having a partner. So Allah doesn't need a partner for anything, is what He's saying to us. All of us might need a partner for something, but Allah is the only one that never ever needs a partner for anything. And so we got to check ourselves, because how much of our deeds are going that way? When Alhamdulillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many of our deeds are going just wasted because we haven't considered fully focused on the intention. And the intention is more important than the deed. Sometimes we get excited, we're happy, we want to do something good, help someone, be there, talk, give money, whatever, we're excited, and that excitement overtakes our cognitive understanding of what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. And then of course, when something goes awry, we blame the individual, when really the blame should be where? Right? Exactly. We should be blaming ourselves because we didn't have the proper intention from the beginning. Had we have had the proper intention, the feeling that we're seeking, or the state that we're after, would have been given to us by Allah Azza wa Jal, because we would have done it purely for His sake, subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is what ikhlas is. But because whatever they call it, tashweeb or shawa'ib, whatever mixing there was in the intention, means we don't get that reward. So he says, so he says, wal-'ird, which is one's honor or money. So it's all those things. So someone talks bad about you, like you've been best friends with someone for a long time, and you hear from someone else that so-and-so was saying, you got big feet, or whatever, big nose, or whatever it is, and you're not happy with that, and you get upset. It says, وَيَحْصُلُ كَمَا صَبَرَ كَمَالُ الصَّبْرِ عَلَى ذَلِكَ بِكَفِّ النَّفْسِ. So he talks about here the perfection of sabr. He says, complete fortitude in this regard. Kamal al-sabri. So what the Imam's talking about is the perfection rather than just the completion. The kamal in this connotation is the perfection of one's fortitude. In other words, one being able to maintain their resolution, whatever they've decided, and one to maintain one's steadfastness on the deeds that follow on from that resolution, have become perfected, or become to their utmost capacity. One does it to the utmost capacity. عَلَى ذَلِكَ بِكَفِّ النَّفْسِ عَنِ الْبُغْضِ. So he says, how does one do that? By preventing oneself from hating the offender. Easy to do. Unfortunately, that's the weakness of being a human being. That someone was our friend for so long and we've got such a great relationship, and then we hear one thing that they've said or may have said about us or they did, and all of a sudden we start to hate that person. And it happens between husbands and wives. One day they're not just best buddies, they're more than best buddies, they're intimate partners. And they're sharing emotional and physical intimacy, and the next day it's all hell breaks loose. It becomes a war where each side is trying to prove his or her righteousness or his or her correctness in the dispute that's happened subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first step is not to hate the other. That's the first thing. Because why? Even though that other person's been the cause for it, really where does it come from? The problem between you and that person, or that issue that's occurred, has come from Allah, really. Allah sent that thing to test you, sent that thing to try you, sent that thing to elevate you in reality. Whether it's come from Him directly, like in the first part of this type of fortitude, or whether it's come on the hand of another. Just like if someone hands, it's no different. Someone gave you money, you're like, yeah, sweet, cash, great, it's awesome. Or a phone, or they helped you out with advice or whatever. That's really come from Allah on the hand of that person. And it's no different when it comes to something that's negative. It's really come from Allah on the hand of that person, because Allah wants to elevate you. He wants to elevate the believer. So why would you hate the bearer of the message when the actual message itself is not from that person, it's from Allah Azza wa Jal? So why hate the bearer of the message? Can't hate Allah. Okay? In kana musliman, if that person's a believer. وَعَنْ حُبِّ الشَّرِّ لَهُ, and that one should, or wishing harm to come to that person. Wishing him to come to harm, which is the exact Arabic, but it's a little bit more convoluted in English. So In other words, without making dua for that thing, but wishing in one's heart, yeah, I hope that person gets their just desserts. I hope that person, being vengeful, in other words. I hope that person, falls and whatever, breaks their nose or whatever it might be, whatever harm we wish to come financially, or I hope they lose all their money or whatever, they get something bad. Because a believer never wishes that upon anybody. We don't wish bad for anybody. We wish people to be guided, and Allah to send them the causes for guidance. And he says, وَكَفِّ اللِّسَانِ عَنِ الدُّعَاءِ عَلَيْهِ وَتَرْكِ الْمُؤَاخَذَاتِ لَهُ رَأْسًا. Preventing one's tongue from praying to God against that person and not reproaching him at all. Now that's hard. That's a tough thing. Someone's done the wrong thing by you, you're like, Allah, punish them, I don't know why we think like that, but that's our human nature. We want to be vindicated. We want retribution. It's the natural state of being a human being. So Allah Azza wa Jalla sent this deen to refine some of the test us in that regard, because the more we can overcome the base biological nature which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us by, then the more elevated we'll be in the sight of Allah, the closer we'll be to the angels. And the angels, where do they hang out? Where do the angels hang out? You're right, hang out with Allah. In the Mala al-A'la, wherever that is, wherever that may be, they're chilling out there in somewhere that we don't know where it is. They're angelic because of their qualities. And the more we're able to overcome our base desires, the more that we're elevated above the status of angels. So it's not an excuse to say that, oh, that's how Allah made me. Someone was saying that the other day. Oh, that's just how I am. I can't remember who it was. No, it wasn't anyone in this room, I don't think. But whatever, someone was saying that that's just how I am. And like, what do you mean that's how you are? That's not an excuse. If that's how you are and you know that, then you've got to work harder to overcome that. And the harder you work, the more you'll be elevated. I don't recall who it was actually. And not reproaching him at all. وَتَرْكَ الْمُؤَاخَذَاتِ لَهُ رَأْسًا. So I don't not like that, and not reproaching him at all. But تَرْكَ الْمُؤَاخَذَاتِ لَهُ رَأْسًا. So basically what it is leaving reproaching that person straight away. In other words, saying, khalas, it's from Allah, it's got nothing to do with that individual. Taking the person out of the equation altogether in terms of the way that one reconciles whatever occurred. Okay, so someone slapped you, they didn't like you, they slapped you. That doesn't happen very often, but whatever. They called you a bad name. That happens pretty regularly. Alright, they said you're a whatever. Called you a nasty slur. And so, rather than saying, oh, that person, why did they say that? I'm not like that, whatever, this and that, or etc., etc. Just get the person out of the equation. Who was it? I think it was Imam Shafi'i. They asked Imam Shafi'i, Imam, how did you get to the state that you're at? How did you get to this level of character and conduct and disposition that we've never seen in other human beings? He said, I listened to the slurs of my enemies and I believed them. And then I changed. And even the Salihin, they say that if you don't have a Shaykh that's a Murabbi, someone to take you on the path, then hang out with your enemies and whatever they tell you, change. So, rather than, saying it's that person and whatever, go beyond that. Don't reproach that person. Look beyond that. And if that person said that thing to you, say it's from Allah, Allah is saying, maybe there is something in my character. It's a hard thing to do. Like, it takes a strong person to do that. It takes a very weak person to just react. It's easy to do. It's no thing. Right? It's not hard at all. But what takes strength is to change. That's true strength. That's true strength. And even when they measure engineers, that's not here, but when they'll tell you about steel, how is the strength of steel measured? In its flexibility. The more flexible the steel is, the stronger it is, not in its rigidity. Because if it's rigid, what happens? When a certain amount of tension is put on it, it snaps. And that's what we do. We snap. Yelling, screaming, crying, whinging, swearing, smoking, drinking, whatever else that a person does when they snap. whatever it might be. Whereas the believer, when they snap, they turn to Allah. They turn to Qur'an. They turn to Salat. They turn to Zakat, and they're giving money. They turn to Istighfar. They turn to Siyam. They turn to fasting. Fasting is the quickest thing to bring you back to your base. In other words, to who you are. Even they say when you jet lag, when you get to the place, now they're saying, this is not Muslims saying, these are scientists saying that if you get jet lag, when you go to a place, fast the day before you go there, and fast when you get there, it resets your biological clock. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. He says, إما حملا واحتمالا أو عفوا وصفحا اكتفاء بنصرة الله في الأول ورغبة في ثوابه في الثاني. Which things should be accomplished? In other words, a person is able to do these things that we just mentioned, or the Imam just mentioned. How? By either forbearance and fortitude through one's reliance on Allah's assistance. In other words, Allah will fix up that wrong that person did. So the classic story that one of the pious people had a cow, and someone stole the cow. And the cow had a very, very distinct mark on its forehead. But the guy, he put dirt, it was like a very light colour, and he put red dirt all over it, so the cow looked like it was red. And then he went and saw the guy, my cow, he knows the cow, he milks it every day, twice a day, he knows exactly about the cow. And then the guys that stole it said, no, it's not your cow. And then the townsfolk heard, and they called the qadi, they called the judge, and the judge came, and those days was a bit different. They went in front of the judge, and then the judge said to the guy whose cow it was, he goes, do you have any proof that it's your cow? He said, no. He says, anyone know that it's your cow? He goes, I don't know. And then he asked the guy whose cow it was, the pious person, he said, is that your cow? He goes, yeah. He goes, do you swear by Allah it's your cow? He said, I've never sworn by Allah for anything in my whole life. I've never sworn by Allah. I've never made an oath by Allah for anything in my whole life. Don't worry, just let him keep the cow. And then he left, and the guy later on kind of woke up to himself. So that man, that pious person, he relied on Allah for Allah to return what was rightfully his. And that's what the Imam is saying here. But it should be accomplished by forbearance and fortitude through one's reliance on God's assistance. In other words, nusratillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think that's what he says here. Yep, binusratillah. So to say that Allah, if this thing, if I've been wrong done by, whatever redress that's going to come, Allah will bring that redress, which is the case anyway. It's the case anyway. Someone steals your, what do they call that thing? That watch they have there with the connects to the iPhone. Smart watch. What is it? Whatever. Is that what it is? No, the phone specifically for the Apple phone. Apple Watch, right? Someone steals your Apple Watch, and then you're like, all right, how am I going to get it back? Even if you're going to go over there to the guy or the person and see it and grab it, it's got your name on it. It's still that taqah, that power. It's still from Allah subhanahu wa taala. You can't get up and go and see and grab and take and whatever. That's all from Allah in its essence, in its foundation. So what the Imam is saying, go there straight away. As soon as something happens in seeking the redress, go to Allah in your heart, in your mind. So Allah is going to return this thing to me. Allah is going to return this thing to me. And by reconciliation in the wish for His reward. وَرَغْبَةً فِي ثَوَابِهِ فِي الثَّانِي. So the first one is, well, I can't go get my Apple Watch, is that it? Apple Watch back. But don't worry, Allah will give me better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward me better. Maybe that person, so this is when the person has to use their mind. Maybe that person's more in need of it. Maybe they got a family and they had an accident and whatever. I don't know. Whatever it is comes to mind to reconcile within yourself that, and most of us, we're not really that in need. I mean, alright, we're cut because, I don't know, I'm really not sure what the watch does, but we can back up everything, can't we, anyway, on the phone, on the watch? Yeah. I don't know, none of us really know. But as an example, if our phone gets taken, most of us have got backups from our, on our computers or somewhere up there with Dajjal. They're all locked up somewhere and they're somewhere. So we've all got it somewhere doing something. There's no way that we should lose these things. So why should we get that upset? Why should we get upset to the stage where we lose our connection with Allah over something that is ephemeral, that belongs to this world? Or someone talked about my honor, or someone talked about stole a good or a product that I own. Like, why should I lose my connection with Allah Azza wa Jal over that? That's the basis of what what's being said here. I think it's been a long week for everyone, has it not? Everyone's half asleep. So maybe what we can do, I was planning to finish the chapter, but what we can do is we can, actually I'll read the last part. وَيُبْعَثُ عَلَى هَذَا الصَّبْرِ الْعِلْمُ بِمَا وَرَدَ فِي فَضْلِ كَظْمِ الْغَيْظِ. So he said, how does a person reach that stage of sabr? How does a person reach that stage of perseverance? Knowledge. You've got to know. If you don't know, how can you do it? If you don't know something, how can you implement it? You don't know how to drive, how can you drive a car? You don't know how to ride a bike, how can you ride a bike? If you don't know how to fly a kite, hey, has anyone ever done that recently? It's something we've lost. When we were kids, we always used to do things like, we used to make it ourselves and tie strings to each other. We couldn't even get the string, tie the string up, forget it. But no one does that anymore. We're too busy playing PlayStation remote control. Yes, fair enough. Alright. Okay? So how? But you got to know. If you don't know how to do the thing, you don't know how to swim, don't jump in the ocean because you're going to drown. There's pretty much no two ways about it. So you got to know how to get that. And he says, this kind of patience is helped by knowledge of that which has been handed down regarding the merit which is in suppressing one's anger. So kadham al-ghayz. Kadham is to envelop that thing. Right? So the ghayz it's not anger, it's that frustration. It's that feeling out of control. Really, if you want to get down to what the ghayz is, that's what it is. Getting out of control. Why? Because someone's taken something. Someone said something to you and you believe unjustly. So we feel out of control. To control that. So if you want to really look at it, self-control. If you want to look at the essence of what the Imam's talking about, self-control. To have self-control. Don't let yourself get out of control. Like you see it. And then I saw the other day, we're driving on the road, the guy gets out of his car because someone cut him off and he's punching the guy's window and he's kicking it. Like, what the... Man, just because someone cut you off, lost control. They lost control when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over something so minor. So, how to hold it? He says, وَاحْتِمَالَ الْأَذَى وَالْعَفُوَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. So he says, I'll talk to you. Suppressing one's anger, enduring injuries. So, it's alright. Someone did something like, what do they say about the Salihin? The Salihin are people that walk in the streets, right, and they make istighfar. The sins come on those people. The Salihin walk in the streets and other people's sins come on them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviates those sins how? Through the pious person making istighfar. By saying, astaghfirullah al-azim. Like, if the pious people, and inshallah we consider ourselves amongst them, if we're not the pillars, if we're not the garbage cleaners, if we're not the khadam, if we're not the servants of humanity, we expect the people who are sicker than us to change humanity? I don't get it. You can't have it both ways. Either you're a righteous person or trying to be a righteous person, trying to be with Allah, and you consider yourself in the category of righteous people. Well, man, you've got to help people out. You've got to get dirty. You've got to get dirty. Physically dirty, spiritually dirty, mentally dirty, emotionally dirty, to lift people up from whatever difficulties that they're facing. How else is it going to happen? How will we expect the people that can't swim to jump in and save the person that swims? That's drowning, excuse me? Is that what we're expecting? We're expecting the person that, is whatever, weighs 35 kilos and is 4'8" to lift up the car off someone who's the car's run over them? We expect the person who's destitute, and disenfranchised and doesn't have money to support the other poor and needy. It just doesn't work that way. Nothing in the cosmos works that way. Nothing in the universe works that way. It's the strong, the able, the enfranchised that have to help the weak and the unable, the disabled and the disenfranchised. So we've got to make a choice there in terms of our own perception of ourselves. Am I of the people of Allah or not? Am I trying to be of the people of Allah or not? Do I love the people of Allah or not? Well, inshallah we do. So what are the criteria to love those people? What are the criteria to be with those people? What are the criteria to be amongst those people? And if we're not ready to take the hit, Habib Abdul Qadir bin Ahmad al-Saqqaf, he's the Shaykh of Habib Umar. So he's the Shaykh of most of your Shaykh. One time the students were all fussing around him and fussing around him and fussing around him and fussing around him. And I've told you this story before. One of the students was getting him in the car, and then the student closed the door. And as he closed the door, the Sheikh's hands got stuck in the door. And then the driver drove, and then after they drove a fair distance, the Habib told the driver, pull over. And then the driver goes, can you open the door? And he saw his face was really, really red, and he was sweating, and he was in a lot of pain. And then he opened the door, and then the driver said, why didn't you tell me straight away? As soon as it happened, why didn't you tell me that your hands? And he looked at his hands, that the meat was off the bone, and it was nasty. You know how hard it is to get your fingers slammed in the door. It's pretty, and a car door is even worse. And he said, why didn't you tell me straight away? He said, why didn't you tell me straight away? Because then the student who loved Habib Abdul Qadir, who loved him a lot, he would have felt bad that look what I've done to the Imam, look what I've done to the Shaykh. If we're not ready to take those kind of hits, maybe that's a bit out of our league at the moment, but if we're not prepared to be the people of Allah, and we always want we want our rights, that's the opposite of the people of Allah. The people of Allah always looking to their obligations. What are my obligations in this situation? 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 And they ask their rights from who? Allah. And even though really they don't, because we spoke about that. They just say, Ya Allah, I feel like this. Ya Allah, this is what's going on. They don't even ask Allah to give them their rights. There, when they face Him, when they go to Allah, it's the bargaining chip. That's a tool. That's a credit. That's a point. Ya Allah, I did this for you. That's the key. Did one do it for Allah or not? If one did it for Allah, tick. If one did it for another reason, cross, unfortunately. That's the way Allah works. That's the sunnah of Allah. That's how Allah decreed things to happen in this world. So, احتمال الأذى والعفو عن الناس, and then to forgive people for doing that, even if it's purposeful. Okay, someone's upset, they're angry, right? Would you rather have them take it out on you? And this is a big call. This is a big call. Would you rather have them take it out on you because bi'idhnillah, you just handle it and cry to Allah? Would you rather take them out on someone who's not 100%, they're going to shoot or hit or belt, or it's going to turn into a yelling match, or. In other words, it turns into a tribal thing, or it turns into two countries fighting, or whatever it might be. Which one? And you've got to make that choice. It's a choice for you to decide for yourself what level you want to be on. Where you want to play. You want to play in the sand pit, or you want to play in the Olympic Stadium. You've got to make that choice. That's a choice for you to decide on which level that you'd like to be on, which level you'd like to play on. What you'd like your status to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one can make that decision for you. Only you can make it for yourself. But once you've made the decision, that's where the sabr comes in to live up to it. That's where the fortitude, the resilience, the resistance, the resolve, and that's where the sweetness is. That's where the sweetness is. Yes, I've done it. Alright, sweet, I'm going to stick to it, inshallah. I'm going to have a bit of funnies on the way and go backwards and fall over. That's normal. But inshallah, eventually, I'm going to get there. So what does He say, subhanahu wa ta'ala? It says, the wage, right? The recompense. The wage of the one who is forgiving and reconciling falls on Allah. In other words, the more hits you take, right? The more difficulties you face, the more people oppress you, the more they talk bad about you, the greater your reward is with Allah. And that's for those who think about Allah and work to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, particularly with those things. I forget who it was. I think it was Shaykh Al-Sha'rawi rahimahullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They like politics in Egypt and all this. They tried to belittle him, because he was Imam al-Azhar, which means he had the top ranking. He was the top ranking official in Egypt and really in the world back then. And so they tried to slander him and say bad things about him. One of the mashaykh, I forget who it was telling us a story, he was asking him, he said, like, why don't you stand up here? They just stayed days and days and weeks abusing him and writing bad things about him in the press back then. There really wasn't much TV and the radio, whatever it was, just non-stop. And they came up to him and they asked him, They said, "No, why don't you defend yourself? You know you're innocent. You know you're innocent." And he said, Allahu Akbar. He said, the way with Allah Azza wa Jal, that if something relates to you personally, don't worry about it. Allah will defend you. But if something relates to the deen of Allah, so that's the way the Prophet of Allah said. He never used to get angry except for the deen of Allah. So if something relates to the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, then you speak up. Then 2 or 3 or 4 days later, not long, the Shaykh was telling us, he heard it from Imam Sha'rawi, from Shaykh Sha'rawi, rahimahullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's got his video, it's in Jipao Arabic, but you can watch it if you want. Like, he didn't die that long ago. I think in late 90s, I think he died, rahimahullah ta'ala. And then a couple of 3 days later, there was a big expose, and the people, making these fabrications up against the Shaykh got exposed, and again the Shaykh's status came up again, without him having doing anything. He knew his recompense with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was like, that's it, he was the main Shaykh at the time. So that's some of the examples that happen in our own time. Allah does not love the unjust. Allah does not love the unjust. So if someone does something wrong, Allah will fix him up anyone. And whoso defends himself after he has suffered wrong, for such there is no way of blame against him. So to clarify that aspect, it doesn't mean that if someone steals your car, you just kick back and do nothing. Right? If you know who it is, you make the police reports, you make your claims, you do whatever you have to do. But this is more about the state in your own heart about that. Someone steals you with an Apple Watch, we said. If you know who it is, take steps to get it back. But you're only getting back the good that belongs to you. The state that you're in with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should not change. That's the fortitude. That's the sabr. Because you lost something. Or because someone called you a name. Or because someone took your money. Or someone dishonored you. Is that clear? So it doesn't mean you don't go and, if they took your land or whatever, it doesn't mean you don't go and make an application or make a claim or file a statement of claim and get the best lawyer and whatever else, call the cops, whatever you have to do. Okay? It doesn't mean that you let people punch you in the face and get away with it. That's not what it means. So someone's like, you can defend yourself, you're entitled to. But it's the state that you have in regards to that other person. You might be having a fist fight with someone, but first you don't want to hurt them. As an example, you don't want to, you don't have anything against them. They've just got a wash. They've probably got some problems and you actually feel sorry for them. And the reason why you want to subdue them is so they don't do themselves and anybody else any harm. That might be the case. It's an extreme example, but that may be the case. So that we use a lot of extreme examples so you get the point. The way of blame is only against those who oppress men and transgress in the earth without right. For such there is a painful torment. And those who endure patiently and forgive, indeed, that is the great thing. That is the great thing. Because that's the test of character. That's the test of fortitude. That's the test of perseverance. That's the test of patience. That's the test of iman billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright, so the famous, we'll talk about it, we'll do it now anyway. وَالْكَاذِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, the famous verse, وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. They say it was one of the imams, one of the family of the Prophet of Allah, they had a servant, and she always used to carry the coals without being covered. They have a special little container, metal container. They put the coals, they lock it so that it doesn't. She always used to carry it on a tray. Then one day she spilt the coals on the tray, and it came on one of the kids. This is the story they hear. And then the kid died when of burns. They say it was Ali Zain al-Abidin, Allahu Alim. And he went off and he got upset. And then she said to him the verse, وَالْكَاذِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. And so he stopped being upset. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. He said, I forgive you. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. That Allah. So وَالْكَاذِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, those that hold that anger. الْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, those that forgive people. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah loves those that are excellent towards others. He gave her, she was a servant, they paid for her to be in the house, she was a slave in other words. He gave her some gold and he said, go fi sabilillah. So that's the level that is sought from us. If we want the stations of the Imams, and we want the stations of Ahl al-Bayt, and we want the stations of the Salihin, of the righteous, and we want the stations of the awliya, that's what we have to look for. That's the kind of level that we have to look for. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.